Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Unbreakable Woman's Journey. If you're a new clinic manager learning leadership in real time, you are in the right place. This episode matters to me because it closes out the first season, and I want to end it in a way that feels real. Not polished for the sake of sounding impressive, not dramatic, just because it's the finale of the season. I want it to land where real leadership actually lives, which is usually somewhere between pressure and responsibility and the quiet relief of realizing you are not carrying everything alone anymore. That's what I want to talk about today. Trust. Yes, it's a big word. Trust. Not the kind people announce. It's not the kind of trust that shows up because someone gives a speech and the whole team suddenly falls in line like a movie scene. I mean, the kind of trust that grows in regular working clinic life. It builds in ways that are easy to miss while you're still busy trying to survive the whole week. Then one day something small happens and you realize the room is changing. That's exactly what happened to me. One of the most exhausting things I used to carry as a clinic manager was the scheduling for the nurses. We have 5 of them. On paper, it may not sound like a big deal, but in real life, it was one of those moving target in a day or when the day is already full of other moving parts of the clinic. The nurses rotated who opened and who closed, and there's a schedule in between. It's a staggered start time basically. But if somebody calls out, I had to start reaching out and figuring out who could cover which shift. Then there was the added layer of the travel to Outer Island Clinic. We have a clinic in Hilo and Kauai. If one of the nurses was scheduled to travel and that they allowed it, they were entitled to leave early. So there's all these other parts to this nurse's schedule. So now it wasn't only filling openings and closing, it also had to keep track of travel, clinic flow, staffing coverage, and all the small adjustments that come with real human beings living real lives. That kind of task doesn't only take time, it takes brain space. It sits in the back of my mind while doing other 10 things. And when you're handling the front of the day but the part of your mental energy is still trying to remember who is supposed to open next week and who requested time off at a specific time or day. And who's traveling to Outer Island on a Tuesday or a Thursday, who swapped shift, who called out last month and may need coverage again, and it's just on and on. See, it's just magnified. And where you're actually posted the schedule, or have I not done it, or am I going to do it? It's just so many things associated with just the staffing schedule alone. That's the kind of thing that drains a manager in pieces. No one sees it dramatically happen. Your shoulders don't suddenly collapse to the floor. It's more than being nibbled to death by ducks. And if you're a clinic manager listening to this, you know exactly what I mean. It's rarely the giant crisis that wears you out first. A lot of the time, it's the steady drip of small responsibilities that never fully leave your brain. That was me with the nurse's schedule. Then one day, one of the nurses came to me and said, "Hey boss, I created the schedule for the next month since you have not posted it yet." I smiled when I think about that because part of me thought, Well, I guess they were tired of waiting for me. But, the reality is that's fair enough. But right underneath that was something much, much bigger. It was a relief. It was, for me, a huge exhale. The kind that makes your whole body soften before you even find the right words for it. My immediate response was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I mean, I couldn't have just leave it there. But I told her I have a lot going on, and I know posting the schedule always comes at the last minute. It's like a big chunk of my day that really gets pushed back because I don't want to do it. But that was a huge difference for me. And I meant every word of it when I told her. It was such a relief. What made the moment even more meaningful was that she didn't stop there. She offered to keep doing the schedule if I trusted her enough with it. And on top of that, she said she could train another nurse as a backup. They were already working together in the back anyway. The back is the nurse's station. And they knew each other's rhythm. They could coordinate and collaborate more naturally than I could from the outside, trying to manage every little shift that changes their schedule. That moment told me something very important. Trust had grown, not because somebody praised me, not because the team gave me some formal sign that I had finally passed leadership test. Trust was growing because ownership was showing up. That's what made this such a big deal to me. She saw the weight, and willingly she stepped into it. Then she created continuity so it wouldn't all collapse back onto my lap if she was not there. And you know what? That's not small. That is trust becoming visible. And I think that matters deeply for accidental managers, because in the beginning of your leadership, it can feel like everything depends on you personally. So you take it on, and you add more, and you just absorb everything. Once you add in the call-outs, the schedule gaps, workflows issues, staffing adjustments, and the little things that keep slipping through the cracks, it can start to feel like you're trying to juggle the whole clinic with both hands already full. That kind of leadership is very exhausting. I think that's not even enough to describe it. But worse than exhausting, it can make you believe that being a good manager means carrying everything yourself. And it doesn't. Reality is it does not. A good leader is not somebody who becomes the human backpack for the entire clinic. A good leader helps create a team that begins to carry the mission with her. That is a very different thing. And it takes time. That's why this episode feels like the right way to close season 1. We started this season with identity. You said yes before you felt ready. Then you started learning how to steady yourself. After that, what came systems and structure and the kind of authority that grows through consistency instead of force. Now we land here in the land of trust, because trust is what starts to change the texture of the work. It is what shifts the clinic from everything depends on me to we are learning how to carry this together. So it's more inclusive now. That nurse scheduling story gave me that feeling. And it didn't happen because I demanded ownership. It grew because the team had been learning something about me over time. They had seen how I handled pressure, and they also saw how I responded to things when things got messy. Messy. And they had experienced enough consistency to believe they could step forward, not just wait for instructions. What I want to underline here is that trust is bigger than being liked. You can see it when people begin taking ownership, when they bring a problem to you early, or when someone steps forward and says, I can carry this part. It shows up when a follow through starts spreading through the whole team, and everything is no longer has to run through one overloaded manager. And if you're a new leader, you may miss that while it's happening, because you're still waiting for trust to feel dramatic. And trust is not dramatic. It is not. Most of the time, it comes in a form of a small moment that creates a big exhale. That's why I want this episode to stay simple and honest. You do not build trust in one heroic move. It grows through repeated experience. Your team is always learning something from the way you handle pressure. They are learning whether honesty is safe. And on top of that, they are learning whether bad news makes you reactive. They are learning whether you follow through on what you say. So stick to following through no matter what. Because they are learning whether you tighten up when things get hard, or whether you stay grounded enough to keep the room steady. All of that teaches people something. And what it teaches them affects whether they stay guarded or they start stepping up. That's one of the reasons I think so many clinic managers miss where trust is really built. They assume that it comes from strong communication. Communication matters, of course, but trust gets tested in moments underneath the message. The room is paying attention to how it feels to work with you when things are inconvenient, unfinished, or under pressure. That is where the lesson lives. Looking back, I can see that this nurse didn't randomly wake up one day and decided to rescue me from my scheduling misery. That moment told me trust had already been growing for a while. So she felt free to step in. She trusted that I would receive her help. And then she believed there was room for shared ownership instead of everything having to run through me. And when she later offered to train another nurse as a backup, wow, I was just floored. That told me that the ownership was no longer about one kind gesture. It had become part of how the team was learning to function. That's a leader's dream, honestly. Yeah, to have your team step up and you could trust them. Not because it makes your life easier, although praise God, it absolutely did. It matters because it showed me that the clinic was beginning to grow beyond me having to hold every thread with my own hands. That's where leadership gets lighter in the best way. Not easier exactly, but healthier. A clinic that's more sustainable, more shared. And the clinic manager who feels like she's one call out away from needing a paper bag and a prayer. I really want you to hear this. If you are carrying too much right now, that doesn't mean you are falling or failing. It means you are still in the stage where trust is forming and ownership has not spread yet. That stage is real. I mean, there is a gap and you can feel it, but And it can also feel lonely. It can feel like your brain is the central filing cabinet, air traffic control tower, and emotional support for the entire clinic. But that stage is not the final stage. Things can shift, people can grow, and trust me, trust can deepen. Ownership can spread, and when it does, you feel it in moments like this one. It was a small shift, but it's huge in saying, I trust you. Somebody steps forward, a burden gets shared, the room changes, you breathe deeper, heaven opens over the schedule board. So, okay, maybe not heaven, but definitely a little patch of blue sky. That's why I want this finale to stay anchored in something practical. Trust is not only relational, it changes how the clinic, the entire clinic, and every part of the clinic, it changes how it functions. Once people trust the environment, they speak up sooner. Once they trust the leader, they stop spending so much energy managing her reaction. Once ownership begins to spread, system gets stronger because they are no longer hanging from one person's overload nervous system. That is real progress, you guys. It may not be flashy enough for social media, but it is the kind that changes the day-to-day reality of relationship. And it's worth noticing. So let me say it clearly. What I want your listener to take away from this season finale is that trust grows in small moments. It grows when your response under pressure makes truth safer than silence. And trust grows when your consistency gives people enough confidence to take ownership. And it grows when your team begins to carry parts of the mission with you instead of waiting for you to drag everything uphill by yourself. That is what happened in the scheduling moment. One nurse stepped in, then another could be trained. That burden shifted and that clinic got stronger. That is trust you can feel. Now, I want to leave you with one sentence to carry you into the week. Trust grows in small moments I could choose on purpose. Trust grows in small moments I could choose on purpose. I'll say it again. Trust grows in small moments I could choose on purpose. That is your tool, not a worksheet, not a 10-step framework, just a sentence to carry. This week, look for one small moment where trust could grow. Maybe it's receiving help without controlling it. Or maybe it's following through after someone tells you the truth. Or could it be letting a team member own something instead of keeping it clenched in your fist because you feel like you're scared to let it go because you don't trust them enough to do it right? Whatever the moment is, choose it on purpose. That's how trust grows. And before I close, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being with me in this first season. This first season has been about the formation of an accidental clinic manager. We walked through different parts after you say yes. We went through identity, stabilization. We talked about systems and establishing systems. We talked about steady authority, and now we end the season with trust that feels complete to me. Season 2 is where the shift begins. We move from accidental manager to intentional leader, and I'm really looking forward to that. So until next time, my friend, stand and deliver on trust. Aloha!